Hello and welcome back to the Entertainment Vortex. We were at Brendan Theaters today watching Ocean's 8. The new movie in the long line of Ocean's films they've done. This one's a little different. It's a new crew, all new characters. I have to say I wasn't too excited to see this. While I did enjoy the first few Ocean's movies, the trailer for this one didn't really strike me as being that interesting, but at the same time I wasn't like, oh gosh, I've got to see this one. It was kind of like a, yeah, sure, whatever. With that being said, I did enjoy the movie. It was actually well done. They, for the most part, follow the formula that you're used to for these movies, with one exception. I feel that the other movies did a really good job of fleshing out all the characters, the 11, 12, 13, and 8 in this case that are involved in the heist. You learn a lot about their idiosyncrasies, you learn a lot about why they're there, their ins and outs, their backgrounds. You become attached to these characters. In this movie, that is not the case. Each one of them is a different role, and you get a little bit about them on the surface, but you don't really learn much about them. And I think it's because they wanted the runtime for this movie to be short. So they spend less time building up to the heist and more time with the heist. Now, with that being said, it doesn't make it a bad movie. I just would have liked to have known more about these characters, so I was more invested in the characters.
This one was an interesting one for me. It was something that when I found out that this was actually going to be a concept that was going to become a thing, I thought this franchise was dead. It was something that I enjoyed a lot, being in probably the right demographic for it when the original 3 came out, not including the old original. The reboot on, we'll call it. I enjoyed those movies a lot. I remember liking the way that the characters bantered together, and the way that they kind of always had another trick up their sleeve, and it was something where you didn't necessarily always know what was going to happen next, which is great for this type of a film. Like I said, wasn't expecting there to be another sequel in this, so when I found out that they were doing one, I was pretty excited about it, and the fact that it was an all-female cast, I was pretty stoked about that as well, to see kind of how that would turn out. They do an interesting job of connecting this story to all of the previous stories. You see in the trailer that she is related to Danny Ocean, so that's basically the main connection point, is that apparently it just runs in the family. The performances themselves do stand out. Sandra Bullock does a great job in this film. All of the other leading ladies, Cate Blanchett, Mindy Kaling, Rihanna, they actually all do a very good job of kind of blending together and making things work. It can be tough trying to make all these different types and personalities all fit together. They do a solid job of, having some of that similar banter that you got from the original 3 movies, making it fun and light. It's not something where you're gonna go in expecting this to be the most hyper-realistic thing that's ever existed. But it is still a whole lot of fun, and it's not something that, like I said, if you go in looking to nitpick things, you may find some things, but it's definitely something where you can go in, turn your brain off, and just enjoy yourself.
The heist was interesting. The planning phases and them pulling off pieces, and when you get to see them, the stuff that they plan and they do it and does it go well, it doesn't go well, all that stuff. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the resolution of the movie. Overall, I felt it was really fun. There's some cameos in there that are pretty neat that I was excited to see, especially if you're fans of the previous movies. Yeah, they made a couple choices with the story that I didn't necessarily care for. I'm not exactly sure why they did it. I'm not going to give anything away. Something they did with George Clooney's character kind of bugged me. I'm not sure why they bothered doing that. I don't think it was necessary. With that being said, each of the individual characters playing the parts in the Ocean's 8, I thought did a good job. Sandra Bullock obviously has to carry the whole thing, and I think I believed her as a con woman. I think she did an excellent job with the fast talking and the casual nature of it all. Cate Blanchett did a good job as well. They're kind of the main characters. They're the two you learn about, and you get very little information about the rest. But it was a good ensemble, interesting ensemble. Wanting more is probably a good thing, because that means they were interesting enough where I wanted more. But it does dock points away because I wasn't as invested in this team as I was the past team.
One thing that I will say that I really, really enjoyed about this film, and it was something that I enjoyed about the original 3 as well, was the visual style. They make things super grand and over the top, and there's just this air of celebrity and royalty to everything. And this story has a little bit more of that than the previous 3 stories do, but there's just something about all of the different colors and all of the locales, the way that they choose to make everything work. It just has a really interesting feel to it that you don't necessarily see from every other movie. It gives it its own kind of presence, which, like I said, you don't get from every other run-of-the-mill film. As Nick stated in his review, there is some issues with the way that some of the characters' backstories are introduced. They don't necessarily flush a whole lot of things out. They really focus on Sandra Bullock, but they don't focus on as many of the other characters, which doesn't deter from the film a whole lot, but you really get to know the characters from the original 3, and it just doesn't seem like you get to know these characters as much. They do a good job of introducing them and making it seem like, oh, they have a past and they have these connections, but they don't dig into them as much as they do with the original 3.
It's definitely a fun watch. If you're looking for another comedy heist movie in the style of the Ocean's movies, I would definitely give this a shot. It was a popular one in the theater we were going to opening night, and we had quite a few people in there, so I have a feeling this one's going to do really well. But, like I said, looking for a comedy, this is definitely a good choice. So I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. It's nothing fantastic. It's nothing horrible. If you're in the mood for it, give it a watch. It's exactly what you're expecting.
The story itself, very entertaining. Something that you could probably sit there and poke a bunch of holes at. But if you're looking to have a good time, if you've watched the original 3 and you're looking for something that's similar to that, this is that movie. You're gonna get, a couple, twists and turns that you may see coming from a mile away, but they are there. It's a cool heist. It's interesting the way that they play up the female aspect for it. It's not like it's super in your face. There are a couple moments where they do a few things that you wouldn't have seen from the original 3 because they were mostly male casts. It was interesting to watch, and like I said, it wasn't super in your face or over the top. I really enjoyed that. It looks like we're going to be unanimous across the board. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it. It's something that I probably wouldn't have had to see in theaters. I could have waited for it to come out to Netflix, but I'm glad that I saw it. I wanted to see it. If you are interested in this type of a film, go out and check it out. If you're going to a pre-matinee showing, it's worth checking out, that's for sure.
If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We do a minimum of 4 videos a week, including movie reviews, Funko Pop news, and a bunch of gaming content. If you're interested in getting one of our t-shirts, the link is down in the description. And as always, we hope you'll follow us into the Vortex. We'll see you next time.